Hello, how are you today? We're so glad to see you. Got a great guest, very wise woman. I'm going to tell you all about her in just a second. First of all, are you thinking of launching your next book on Facebook? You can do that, and it doesn't have to be complicated. If you have a plan before you start and a team helping you spread the word. Hi, I'm Patricia A Durgin, and this is Marketers on a Mission. We present marketing tutorials and interviews by and for Christian writers, speakers, and artists. This is episode number 194, the 4 parts of a successful book launch on Facebook with author Kathy R. Green. Hello, Kathy. How are you?
Hello, Patricia. I'm doing wonderful today, and thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure to just spend time with you, and I'm looking forward to our time today.
Good. We're going to talk about some other things first, but I got to get this in here right away. I can't wait to show everybody. This is Meet Me in the Valley. This is your most recent release, and that's what we're going to dig into today, but we're going to highlight the other 2 books as well on our way. Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
You dedicate, I noticed in your dedication to in Meet Me in the Valley is to your mother, Rosie.
Yes.
What did your mother teach you that made this book the one that you wanted to dedicate to her?
My goodness. My mom has taught me so many things. She's such a wise woman, and she's been through a lot in her lifetime. You know, my dad passed away. She lost 2 sons, her mom and her dad, all in heaven. And just watching her go through those crises and watching the way that she carried on with her life as strong as ever, just pressing through very difficult circumstances. And so she's like my role model, my example. And she keeps me encouraged and motivated. And just watching her and the way that she lives her life, I had to devote the book to her because she really taught me how to stand strong when you're entering into these valley places, and you've got to walk through them. You can't just fall apart and just sit there in that place. You've got to keep moving, and so that's why I dedicated the book to Mom.
We never know who's watching us, do we?
Never.
And our children and our grandchildren are usually the first layers. We think we're just living life, and they're walking through the room or calling us every once in a while, but actually their eyes are glued to us.
That's right. I remember a lady telling me way back years ago when I was fresh out of high school, she said, "Young lady, you be careful with the way you carry yourself because you never know, but there's always somebody watching you." And I never forgot her words.
And we don't have to be scared of it. We just need to be aware of it.
Aware of it. That's right.
When God invited you to meet him in the valley, Kathy, you said that you knew there were lessons to learn before he would allow you to move. You needed to be there. There was a purpose to it, not just to see how much pain you could tolerate, but that he was moving you as that's part of your journey to move further into the destiny he had planned for you.
Yes.
That is so deep and wise, and so few people learn that. Most of us sit in the valley and complain and whine and fill in the blank. But we can be busy in the valley.
Yes. You know, the valley is designed. There's always a purpose to every valley that God allows us to walk through. And so when he said, "Meet me in the valley," I just knew he was calling me into a closer, deeper, more intimate relationship with him, because he wanted to teach me things about himself and also about myself. There were lessons to be learned. And in the book, you know, I talk about how the valley is God's classroom because of the rich insights and the wisdom that we gain from walking through those circumstances. And God is right there with us. He never leaves us. He never forsakes us. He's right there with us, whether we feel his presence or not.
One of the passages that you have in here, you're talking about that very thing. You said that if you've ever taken a test in school, you may remember this principle. The teacher is always silent during the test.
Yes.
That's a great application.
Oh, yes. Don't you remember being in school, whether it was high school, college, and you're taking this exam and the room is silent and you've got to reflect and remember what you studied and think, okay, I know the answer, I studied this. And so that's what life's valleys are like for us. We may not hear God saying anything, we may not even feel his presence, but he would not allow us to go through this situation if we weren't well equipped with everything we need to get through it. He's not going to put us into a position so that we can fail, so that we can be destroyed, but he wants to teach us things. And so he's right there, and all we need to do is quiet ourselves and rely on what we already know. Something that I always say to my friends and people that call me for counsel and prayer and wisdom, go with what you know. You know the word. Let's stand on it. Pull that scripture out and stand on it, because that's what is going to be the foundation that helps us to walk through that place.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so we have times often we have times of reflection. He pulls us apart from our normal duties. He gives us time. We don't know it. He doesn't put a sign out. He says, I'm preparing you now for these 6 months because you're fixing to have a test, and I want you to be prepared. But as we live in him and obey him and follow him, we discover that's the case, don't we?
Yes, he always prepares us. We never go in ill-equipped and unprepared for these places that we find ourselves in. We may not feel like we're ready. We may not feel like we're equipped, but within us, deep within us, is all that we need to make it through.
And you said that several years ago that a friend asked, several friends were like, what's your next project? Because you're a busy person.
Yes.
People who know you are used to you going from project to project to project. And this was a time of not of stagnation, but of rest. And so one of your friends helped you realize that was a preparation time.
Absolutely. One of my prayer partners, I actually met her on Twitter. And so we began to pray together over the phone, and just a wonderful woman of God. And I was kind of telling her about this season of rest that God was calling me into. And I was restless in rest. I just felt like, shouldn't I be doing something? I felt very restless. And so she says, you know what, Kathy, I think you should really take advantage of this season of rest, because on the other side of this, you're going to need your strength. Mm-hmm. You're going to need your energy. And I listened to what she said, and I went into prayer and I said, God, help me to rest. And I remember thinking, can I write a blog post? Can I work on a book? Can I? Nothing for 1 year. And I didn't know it was going to be a whole year. But for 1 year, God did not allow me to do anything. No speaking engagements, no blog posts, no book writing, nothing.
We have to find a way to be content with that, don't we?
Yes.
People and our schedule and our own personal habits, they drive us to be productive, be effective. You've taken 30 minutes. What are you still doing sitting down? A year's a long time.
Yes, and you're talking to a woman who used to feel guilty for taking a nap. When my children were small, or even when they were in school and I knew I needed to wash clothes, cook, or whatever, but my body was tired because maybe I was up at 4 or 5 a.m. in prayer. And I would think, well, I'm very tired, but I felt guilty for taking a nap, like it was unproductive time. And it took me many years to learn how to rest, to learn that it's okay to take a half an hour or even an hour to be refreshed, to let your body do what it needs to do, because our bodies tell us what we need. But how often do we ignore it? Even something as simple as physical rest, not just a season of rest spiritually that God was calling me to, but even physical rest was tough for me. But I learned how.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And we are beneficiaries of that. Thank you very much for taking the time to learn. Nancy Carmichael's here. Hi, Nancy. It's good to see you. So glad you could be with us. I had something very wise to say, but it went like that. Maybe it will come back. So let's back up just a little bit. Early in your marriage, it seemed, your father passed 2 weeks after your high school graduation. And you and he were so close. He was your anchor, wasn't he?
Absolutely. We were very close. My dad taught me about the importance of prayer and reading my Bible. And he would even sit down with me at the kitchen table and we would go through the scriptures together. And he gave me my very first Bible as a gift for Christmas. It was a very small little white Bible, leather Bible that I still have today. And just such a rich relationship. And again, I would watch my dad. He was a deacon in the church, and I remember listening so carefully when he would pray before the services began, and just watching him and observing the way that he did things and his passion for God and his love for the things of God.
Now, it wasn't but just a few years later, and you got married to your husband.
Yes.
You were gifted with another father figure, and your father-in-law, you said he even looked similar. They had similar ways and mannerisms. That's God, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I remember when I first met him, I thought, my goodness, he reminds me of Dad. And they even used to bowl at the same bowling alley, but they didn't know each other, or if they did, we didn't know it. That was years before I met my husband, but I felt that God gave me a gift of another dad that had the same mannerisms, the same temperament, and it was like having my dad back with me. Just so sweet. Both men, just sweethearts.
Is your father-in-law still with you?
No. He passed away about 3 years ago.
Okay, so they're both gone.
Yeah.
But Christ allowed you to be enriched by their wisdom and knowledge.
Absolutely.
And then during your marriage, your plans were, before you got married, your plans were boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
You had a timetable because you're a planner. You're organized.
Yes.
You knew what was going to happen. And the Lord said, whoosh.
Talking about turning my world upside down. I mean, I thought I had it all figured out, Yeah, I know. I'm going to do this, this, and this. I had a desire to own my own business. I wanted to have a hair salon because I had gone off to beauty school and then to college. And so I loved doing hair, makeup, and things like that. And I wanted to own a business. But little did I know I was going to meet my husband. We were going to get married and move away. And then within 6 months, I was pregnant. And so my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I knew that I needed to be with my daughter. And I worked part-time in the salon at that time, but it just seems that all of my dreams began to unravel and just fade away. The things that I thought I would be doing by a certain point in my life, that was not God's plan.
This is such a common theme, not just to women, not just to Christians, but humanity. Mm-hmm. Whether we know his name or not, he often turns the tables on us, and so that we will run to him, so that we will depend upon him. But you had a long wait. One of your early testing, or valleys, I should say, was 13 years long. Tell us about that, please.
Well, that was my marriage, because nothing turned out the way I expected it to. My marriage was very difficult. My husband and I, we're opposites. We love each other. Here we are 33 years later, but we went through that period, which is what I want to tell a lot of young people. You're going to go through peaks and valleys in your marriage. It's not going to be just, utopia, perfection, and everything wonderful from day one all the way through. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we are not taught that marriage is a challenge, that it's two lives becoming one. Mm-hmm. And it's the gelling and the meshing together of two personalities, two, lives, two hearts, everything. Mm-hmm. And you're coming together, and oh my goodness, I could say so much about that. But yeah. And so I remember entering into postpartum depression after I had my daughter. And that's something that I wouldn't wish that upon anyone, because you have these emotions and feelings that you don't even know where they come from. Why do you have them? How do I get out of it? And it was just a valley, mm-hmm. a dark valley for me. Mm-hmm.
So your dreams that you had and that you felt that God also had for you, I mean, you were a Christian during these years. So even though the timetable didn't work, he didn't give up on your dreams. Did he allow you to give up on them? Did it get to the point where you thought it's over? Or did it just get close that I'm not sure this is going to work out, God?
It's so interesting, Patricia, because I felt that my dreams died, that they were just dead, and non-existent, and that, it was almost like I totally surrendered to what God was doing in my life. And I just pushed those things to the back burner. I didn't know if they would ever happen or not, but I came to a place of contentment, because as I spent time in prayer and in the Word, I remember just becoming very involved in, work at church. I was involved in children's ministry and just pouring into the kids. And I got busy doing things, helping other people. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of forgot about myself, basically. And I was content. I was content in my relationship with God, content in my service in the kingdom, and I was satisfied with that, not knowing what was going to happen years later to awaken my dreams.
He's so good. He gives them to us, and he holds them for us until the right time, doesn't he?
Yes. That's right.
Nancy says she can't stay because she's got to go take a nap.
Hi, Nancy.
She's referencing your ability to take a nap, finding contentment and knowing that you could have permission to take a nap. And then now, years later, there's another valley. There's several that we'll cover, but tell us about your daughter, Iman. She had a near-death experience. Of course, she was nearly grown. This is another valley that she had that you had to watch.
Yes.
That's different.
Yes. Well, as a mom, you pray for your children and you want the best for your children. And so Iman was away at college at Oral Roberts University. She was doing fine in her junior year of college, moving along very well. And it was Easter Sunday that I received a phone call from Iman. And she says, "Mom, I'm coughing up blood." And I said, "What?" And I thought maybe she had a cold and, was coughing up little mucus with blood in it or something. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, you need to go and check things out. Go into emergency." Well, the next day she went to emergency that next morning because this was Sunday evening when that happened. Mm-hmm. And she went to emergency. They did a CAT scan only to discover that she had a large mass on her left lung. Yeah, so I remember being at work that next morning and I got a phone call. They said, "Kathy, there's a call for you." And so I picked up the line and it was Iman. She was crying and she says, "Mom, they found a mass on my lung and they have to remove it. I'm going to have surgery." And so my husband had traveled out of state that same morning. He had caught a flight to a business trip. And I'm standing there at work, and I'm hearing her voice telling me this. And I'm feeling like, oh my gosh. And so I remember calling my husband saying, "You've got to get back here. We've got to go to Oklahoma and pick up Iman. She's in trouble." Yeah.
She had a relationship with Christ. You had already been through many, many valleys. You were familiar with, nobody wants to be, but you were familiar with unexpected and unwanted news, dealing with it, processing it, and so forth within yourself. But what was the biggest challenge that you had as you watched her? Because she was fine spiritually, but physically, she could have lost her life. All kinds of things could have happened, and there was a waiting time to find out if she was going to be all right. Then a long recovery time.
It
how
was
did Christ give you help and wisdom to help her?
Yeah, the part that was a challenge for me was the sorrow that I felt in my heart. It was like her life was in the balance. I didn't know if she would live or die because they did find cancer and they removed half of her left lung. And over the summer, she was scheduled to go on a missions trip and she couldn't go. And her friends were all on the missions trip. She was not there. She was actually here in our home in my bed recovering. And it was about an 8-week recovery period. And so watching her suffer, watching her learn how to walk all over again, her little voice was at a whisper because her lung capacity had changed. And I remember her feeling very depressed. Mm-hmm. And I would look at her little face and she was so sad and discouraged. And I remember praying and just trying to keep her encouraged. And while I was kind of taking care of her and nursing her back to health, making her lunch and her breakfast and all of those things, I was actually finishing up my first book. Mm. And so I knew strategically, this is an enemy. The enemy's trying to come here as a major distraction through my daughter. Mm-hmm. I knew God was not finished with me with the book, and he was not finished with Iman. Yes. But we had to get through this valley, and we got through it together as a family.
Everybody benefits from that kind of a scenario. Nobody wants bad stuff to happen, but it draws us together like nothing else will.
That's right.
Kathy Elliott's here. Hello, Kathy. Always good to see you. And hi. Janelle Wood. So glad that you could be here. So now you were you children's and youth pastor ministry leader for 15 years, more or less. Then God called you to preach and speak. Then a mass was discovered on your thyroid. Tell us about that, please, because that tempered everything else, going back to the dreams, and seemed like the dreams, it was over again.
Mm-hmm. So I had written the first book. I had released it. I released it in, November of 2010, October, November of 2010. By January of 2011, I discovered I had this mass on my thyroid. And it happened after a routine endoscopy, colonoscopy. And I came out of that having trouble swallowing. And I thought, what's going on? So I went back to the doctor. I said, hey, doc, I'm having trouble swallowing. He says, well, I'll send you to a thyroid specialist and let him take a look. Mm-hmm. They did the little test, found out I had a large mass on my thyroid. And so the short of the story is that I did go in to have the right side of my thyroid removed. And when I woke up from the surgery, I went to talk, and my voice was horrible. It sounded like I had a horrible case of laryngitis. And my doctor said, well, it should get better in about 2 or 3 months. Well, 2 or 3 months turned into 4 years. And shortly thereafter, when it didn't improve, I went back to another doctor, ear, nose, and throat, and he looked at my vocal cords and told me, you have a paralyzed vocal cord. Mm-hmm. And so again, it was like my dreams were on the line, because here this new book was launched. I couldn't be more happy. But when the book was launched, it also opened doors for speaking engagements. I began to go out and teach people about prayer and talk about my book and do book signings. I was on prayer calls and just all kinds of things. I remember doing an interview for a Christian women's magazine. And when they did the interview, they recorded it. But she could not publish the interview because of the quality of my voice was so bad. So she did print it as a cover story for the magazine, but she couldn't release the recording. And so it was a very, I was discouraged. Mm-hmm. I was very discouraged. I was frustrated. I couldn't understand what God was doing in my life. He allowed me to write the book. He began to open the doors. And all of a sudden, my voice is this way. And I was very embarrassed at the sound of my own voice.
One of the things that you talk about in Meet Me in the Valley, and look at all these tabs. I might have to go buy me some more yellow Post-it notes.
I love it.
And that's your fault, girl. But one of the things that you talk about is that you were reared, and it was your nature to be very conscious of your image. And the way you presented yourself, and that's not bad at all. That's not wrong or negative or unchristlike. But he had some work to do in you on that point, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Because I was concerned about image, like you said. I wanted to present myself, a certain way. And when you meet people for the first time, you want to open your mouth and you want to sound articulate, like you know what you're talking about. Well, I had this horrible voice. And so when I would meet people for the first time, I remember I went to a wedding reception or a wedding of a friend. Her son got married. And at the reception, one of the ladies, started talking to me. And when I went to talk back, my voice was like a little whisper. And she says, girl, speak up. Nobody can hear you. Mm-hmm. And it was one embarrassing moment after the next. And I couldn't order food at a drive-through window like a McDonald's or anything because they could never hear me. And I learned to just speed up to the window and tell them what I wanted because they could never hear me at the little place where you order your food. But God was working something in me. He allowed me to hit those low places where I was embarrassed and ashamed because he wanted to uproot every ounce of pride and what we call self-esteem. He wanted all that gone. That wasn't important. He wanted my heart. And so where I was concerned about the way I sounded when I prayed, I wanted to project my voice and pray with power and authority. Mm-hmm. He didn't care. And one day when I was asking him, I said, Lord, what are you doing in my life? And why are you allowing this? Mm-hmm. And I said, nobody can hear me on these prayer calls. Nobody can hear me. And he said, well, who are you praying to anyway? He said, I can hear you just fine. I can hear you at a whisper. When he said that, Patricia, case closed.
That's right.
There was nothing else for me to say. I realized I had heart issues. I had issues with pride. I wanted other people to look at me a certain way and believe certain things about me, but those things were not important to God. He was looking at my heart. And so he reminded me, your prayers are to be directed to me, not for the glory of what you would receive when someone hears you pray. So all of that was wiped away.
And this is such a key part of your story, because he's called you to learn how to pray on a level that other people cannot or will not or have not been called to. So as a leader, both a speaker and a writer and a ministry leader as well, communication with your voice, I mean, is so pivotal.
Yes.
And I really appreciate the fact that he didn't close the door to ministry while you were in this time where your voice wasn't well. He still gave you opportunities, and not to please you, but to teach you that you can serve him no matter what.
Yes, indeed. Oh, that's what he taught me.
And we all need to know that, don't we?
Yes, and I wanted to hide. I wanted to go somewhere and never talk again. I promise you, my voice, it was a little uncomfortable. I remember getting choked when I would try to swallow water. I lived on ginger because ginger somehow, it's kind of spicy if you've ever had fresh ginger, but it soothed me. It made my throat feel good. And so I remember all the natural things that I would do to feel better, but it was uncomfortable. And I wanted to just withdraw and just say, forget it. I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm not going to do anything. But I couldn't, because had I withdrawn and refused to go through the doors that he opened, I don't know where I would be today. So I had to keep walking through that valley, trusting God that if I stepped out in obedience to do the prayer conference or to do the prayer breakfast or to get on the prayer conference call, if I just continued on that journey of obedience, I had no idea what was waiting for me on the other side.
But you knew from your previous years with him that it was going to be good.
I knew it would be good. Yes. I was too afraid to disobey. I knew I better do this because I don't want to be in disobedience. I don't want to do that.
Okay, I'm writing that down.
I said, nope, I fear you too much, Lord, to go into disobedience and rebellion. I'm going to go wherever you send me, even though I sound this way.
I don't come from a wealthy background in relationships or parenting skills or lots of different areas. So there are some people who've gone through what I've gone through, and they would make a different choice. But I know I'm one of those people, like a pauper who becomes wealthy, and then they always remember, but with gratitude where they came from. It doesn't haunt me at all. All that stuff has been healed. But he's the only thing I got going for me. That's
right. Same for me.
My husband treats me well. My family treats me well. We have a good life. But when I'm standing naked before him, he and I are very clear. He's the only thing I got going.
I agree. He is my everything.
The enemy tells us so often and this is a long story, years in the making, but the enemy is constantly harping on us. If things aren't great today, if momentum isn't in place today, if somebody's not knocking on our door and giving us opportunities, then that by default, that means, well, this is over or you're on your way out at least. And you kept going even when you didn't want to, but you wanted to obey him more.
Right.
And look what you've done. Show us the other books, would you please?
Sure. And I was just thinking as you were speaking, Patricia, when you don't see any activity and nothing's going on, it's called trust. It's just called trust. And as we trust him, it's amazing what he does in our lives. But these are my other two books. That's Pray-ers Bear Fruit. This is the first book that I was writing when my daughter, was diagnosed with cancer.
Okay.
And then this is my second book called Come. And it's a book written for teenagers, young people, college students, to teach them the value of prayer so that they understand how to do it and how important it is. And I talk about my childhood and my prayer life and I give some other stories. Even when Samuel, when the Lord spoke and called Samuel, you know, he was a boy, but he learned how to hear God's voice in his childhood. So if I could teach them the value of prayer and learning how to recognize when God is speaking, those kind of things are in this book.
I'm very interested in both of them, and let me show Meet Me in the Valley one more time. And this is the most recent, and it was released last year, wasn't it? Last November?
It was released just in October 2 months ago.
Oh my goodness! Yes, because when you were here before, we talked about Pray-ers bear fruit. Yes,
brand new off the press.
So you had a damaged vocal cord, but you're speaking to us now. What took place that made that possible?
You know, it's nothing short of a miracle, because one day I was up early in the morning, like always, praying and just worshiping the Lord. And I decided to sing that day. I don't sing every day, but that day I decided to open my mouth and sing a song unto the Lord. And he likes it when we sing to him. I'll say that. And as I'm singing, all of a sudden I hit a soprano note and I thought, oh, my voice is back. And it was so unbelievable, because the pitch, I could only speak at a certain tone and pitch. And then that day I went up, and I had not been able to do that for 4 years. And so I was just so amazed. I said, my voice is restored. I'm healed. And when I go to church, I sing. I don't care who's around me. I'm singing as loud as I possibly can. Because during those 4 years, I would sing at a whisper and tears would roll down my eyes, because I wanted to project my voice and sing and worship the Lord freely, but I couldn't. And I learned how worship is in our hearts, because he can hear us at a whisper. So even though I couldn't project my voice, I could still worship him. But that day, when my voice was restored, it was miraculous, because I wasn't doing anything different. This was just something suddenly that happened. And I remember making a doctor's appointment because I wanted him to look at my vocal cords and show me what had happened. Mm-hmm. To my surprise, when I went to the doctor, you know, our vocal cords are supposed to do this when we talk. They touch and they make a sound. Well, my right vocal cord was still standing there, but the left one was moving. So
and that was enough?
Yes.
That's not normally enough. It normally takes 2.
Miracle. It is.
How did you feel about the dreams he had planted in your life all those years ago, with the starts and the stops, and then the ministry with very little voice? What did that unlock in you, Kathy?
Oh my goodness, so many things, but my love for God and my passion for him has just gotten deeper. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's so much bigger. He's so much bigger than us, and his plan is greater than our plans. And the way that he goes about bringing these things to pass, we have nothing to do with that. Yes, we should be faithful. We should be obedient. But at the end of the day, it's God's plan and it's his timing for the coming to pass of these dreams. And do you know, Patricia, that everything God has done for me, 3 books, you know, that I've written and published, and then I'm also a contributing author in 2 other books. He's far surpassed anything I could ever dream of or imagine. The doors that he's opened, the television programs that I've been on, like Daystar and TBN, I never expected any of that. He went way beyond my wildest dreams.
And that's what he promises, isn't it?
Yes. When we trust him, when we wait on his timing, he always comes through.
And it's almost always later than we want it to be, but it's also sweeter, isn't it?
It's sweeter. And do you know what? When we wait on his timing, we are not the same people that we would have been if it had happened back here. So he changes us, he transforms us and gets us ready for what he's about to do. So I'm not the same person that I was way back then when I thought I was ready. I really wasn't. Uh-huh. But he made sure I'm ready.
He held me back for 2 decades. Yeah. And the whole time I was in the same boat as you. When's it going to happen? I remember your promise, but it's not happening. When's it going to happen? You know, that whole cycle. Yeah. And over the years, he helped me realize it was a kindness that he had held me back because I wasn't ready, even when I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have to backtrack. I didn't have to go and clean up a mess that was public because now I'd changed my audience or changed my topic, my message. When he did give me an opportunity, I knew what I was about. And it was his doing, all his doing. We've got some comments here on Facebook. Kathy Elliott says, amen. Dee Lundgren says, I'm being blessed listening. Kathy loves these thoughts. I think we have something else here. Let me also just refresh. Janelle, I mentioned Janelle's here. I think we had somebody else. Sometimes I have to refresh if you give me just a second. What did your husband think about this while we're waiting? What did your husband think? You weren't talking for a long time, 4 years, hardly whisper, and then all of a sudden now he's got his regular wife back.
My husband is such an amazing man of God. When I was down and felt discouraged about the whole thing, he treated me like nothing was wrong with me. He treated me the same. And when I would be down, he'd say, what's the matter with you? You sound just fine. He couldn't understand. And I said, but look, I don't sound good. He didn't care. He was my greatest support, pushing me out there and just being my covering. Just wonderful.
We really learn about the people that we love and love us when life is horrible, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We really do. And most of the time we're pleasantly surprised.
Yes. Because he was my greatest voice of encouragement and still is. It's
a wonderful thing.
It is.
Michelle Bankston's here. That's who I was missing. Yes. Good to see Michelle. Susanna Davis, Robbie Handy Pink, Robin Bertram. Yes. Thanks very much for being here. So let's see. I've got another quote that everything. This is a good book. You need to get it. Meet Me in the Valley by Kathy A Durgin. Each time we encounter trouble, we are privileged to see and experience another facet of God. And that is so true indeed.
It is, because that's how he shows us different parts of himself. He's multifaceted, We'll never learn all there is to know about God. We'll spend eternity learning. And, that's why they say the angels go around the throne saying, holy, 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 over and over again, because they keep seeing a different facet of God. And every time he allows us to encounter trouble, to walk through a valley, we're going to learn something more about God than we knew before. Yes. And I tell you, I would not trade those experiences or the lessons I learned. And just, it's like filling a basket with treasures. Every time you go through something, you're going to gain another treasure, another something. I don't know what to call it, but you gain more knowledge of God. And it's just so wonderful. And we've got to know him, because if we're going to walk with him, that's just like our spouses, our children. The only way that we're going to know them is by walking with them, being in relationship with them. So whether it's the mountaintop or the valley, that intimacy, drawing close to him and allowing him to walk with us hand in hand, that's how we come to know him.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I've never had a valley that I've been placed in or heard of anybody else who wanted to go through it at the beginning. And also, if they stayed the course and trusted, they were always praising God when it was over, weren't they?
Yes, that's right.
So now your book, you've got, each chapter starts with a personal story, just intro into the point that you're trying to make, that you are making. And then we have the lesson, the content. Then there's a point to ponder. And right at the very end of each chapter is a suggested prayer.
Yes.
I like how you've done this. There's lots of chapters, but it's not, you could read it in one sitting.
Yes.
But you need to go back because it's deep. So you need to circle back. Maybe once a week would be good.
You can either take your time and you could read it like a 21-day devotional. You can just skip through and go to whatever you feel led to read that day. You can approach it in so many ways. But many people that have read the book have read it maybe twice. Some are reading it for the third time. And many have told me that this is my best work so far. Yeah.
Okay, so if this is your best work so far, I need to know when number 4 comes out.
Yes.
Uh,
It's coming. I'm going to be working on that.
okay, duly noted. One of the things that you say, one of the principles that you share in the book is that there comes a point when we've been in the valley so long, it seems obvious that we're not going to get out. And the enemy just gnaws on our throat. That's my interpretation. You didn't say that. He just gnaws on us and he lies to us and he tells us everything that's going on. But you're saying that when the pressure is the most difficult, when the thumb in the back is putting the most pressure on us, the tide is just about to turn.
Yes, ma'am.
I love that.
That's it, exactly. Because I have walked through some valleys in my lifetime. And to be honest with you, it seems that I was in a spiritual warfare from the day I was born. It's like, I don't know, it seems like I had a target on my back from childhood. And I mean, I learned how to war with the enemy. I learned how to fight and how to stand and how to pray and how to make it through. And so I've learned certain patterns that the enemy uses over and over again. He may have it packaged a different way, but he uses the same tactics because he doesn't have anything else to use. And
That's
so
right.
when it's the hardest, when it's the darkest, when it seems like you're not going to make it through, your breakthrough is just upon you. It's like, don't give up now. Just stay the course because you're coming out on the other side. Yes.
It's washing over me.
Yeah.
Speaking today, ministering today. Kathy Elliott said, she says, amen again. And these are hard things that we don't share with everyone. Not everyone that we know in our life can take it, can they? And they don't know how to respond.
Nobody wants to think about going through a valley, yet we all go through them. And so why not have a resource that can help you when you're going through that, something that you can actually pick up and find hope and encouragement, prayer, and just scriptural references and things that can help you to get through. This book was birthed out of a 4-year valley. Mm-hmm. And so had I not been willing to face that valley and walk through that valley, the book would have never been written. And so when I hear the testimonies and I hear the readers' reviews and the people's comments, it makes every bit of it worth the journey.
Yes.
Worth the journey.
Well, let's talk about your marketing. You've got 2 things going right now, and one of them is a shorter version just for Christmas called the Be Still Challenge. So tell us about that, and then we'll move into the other marketing elements.
Okay. Well, the Be Still Challenge is something that God put on my heart a few weeks ago, right before we got into the Christmas season. Because years ago, I learned that Christmas is not about the rushing and the running and the hustle and the bustle and I think that's a tactic of the enemy to make us so busy and so stressed that we never really enjoy a time of worship, a time to quiet ourselves and relax in God's presence. And so I learned years ago how to take advantage of the season by rekindling my relationship, my romance, my intimacy with God. And so I remember 2 years ago, the Lord just kind of spoke to me and he said, you know what, this that you do every month, why don't you invite others to get in on this? Don't be selfish. Oh, Lord, because I'm thinking this is just about me and you, isn't it? But he wanted me to welcome other people to experience what I had learned to experience. And so last year I did a devotional online where I would post every day something to reflect on the birth of Christ and, the word and that whole story, which is so fascinating. This year he said, Be Still Challenge. And I thought, oh, this is so good. And so it's designed for us to just quiet ourselves every day, even if it's 10 minutes a day, to get in a quiet place, play some worship music, some Christmas music, read our Bibles, or just sit quietly, pray, or listen for God to speak to our hearts. If we could do that every day, by the end of the season, we're going to be better. We're going to be stronger. We're going to be revived. And so we will enjoy the season instead of rushing through it and being so busy that we missed what is most important. which is spending time with him. That's what the Be Still Challenge is. And I believe it's called Be Still Challenge because it's a challenge to be still.
Yes.
We're busy.
How long is it running?
We're all busy.
I'm sorry. How long is it running? It's not over yet.
No, it's running until December 25th.
Oh, okay.
December 25th.
Okay. All right. Now,
it's not the most popular challenge, but I'm still doing it anyway because I'm doing it and I'm enjoying it. And whoever wants to jump in, jump in. Yeah.
So we've got we promised 4 parts to a successful book launch on Facebook, but we actually ended up with a bonus. So we've got 5 parts to it. This is the book again, because you know I love showing the books. Meet Me in the Valley by Kathy R. Green. And you're launching this on Facebook. So what are the 4 plus 1 bonus parts of a successful Facebook launch?
You know, I love this launch. I'd never done a book launch at all, not on Facebook or anywhere.
Oh.
Because sometimes you don't know what to do when you write the books. You just kind of have a book and you don't know what to do. This year I decided I'm going to do a book launch. I felt the Lord just saying, yes, do this. And so I really put it together myself. It wasn't something that the publisher did for me. I did it myself. And so you start off with an email, you know, your email blast or your email database. You've got to let them know that you have a new book coming out, and then you want to invite them to be a part of your book launch team. And you just kind of see who's going to jump in, who wants to participate. And so I created a wonderful little PDF booklet that gave all the information about the book. It had a welcome letter in it. It had a synopsis of the book. It had some bullet points of the things that I needed the launch team to do. And then it also had the things that I would do for them. And I formed a Facebook group, a private group. I think they call it a closed group on Facebook. And this was like our hub where all of the people that were a part of the team could meet up. Yeah.
And how far in advance did you start?
You know, I started it, I'm going to say, I think I started a month in advance.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was looking at the launch being about 6 to 8 weeks long, but my launch is still going because the people in the group said, we don't want it to end. Let's keep going.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hear that. With your next book, will you do the same as far as launching it a month out, or would you start earlier, do you think?
I think it's a good time because what happened was it built momentum and people began to be very anxious to know when is my book going to arrive. So what I did, I gave them 3 chapters, the first 3 chapters as a complimentary something for them to read. It was just a PDF of the first 3 chapters. They could read that while they were waiting. And then as soon as I got my shipment of books, I started shipping out books. They purchased like a pre-order of the book. And so as soon as the books came, I started shipping them out. And to my surprise, the group grew because so many people that were members of the group began to invite others. And I mean, it grew to 360, 70 people in no time. And they became like my greatest cheerleaders, helping me to spread the word. Something that's really important is that I would create these memes or like graphics with pictures and words, maybe quotes from the book. And when I would share that, they would share it. And many people did this that I didn't even ask to share it, that were not even a part of the book launch team because they loved the content.
Yes. I shared several of them. They were just so beautiful.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Yes.
So all of these things that you're talking about, you gifted to the team members who you're not talking about the general public, but just the people in the Facebook group who promised, let us help you get the word out about this.
And they were so happy and willing to do it. They got the free 3 chapters of the book. And what I would do, I went live right there in our closed group every week to talk to them.
Yes, yes.
And I offered prizes. So once a week, I offered prizes. Just one gift I would give away per week. And what that was just something that I wanted to give them. And so I would draw a name based on the activity. I wanted to see who's being most active. Who's sharing the post, who's commenting, who's welcoming new members, who's reading the 3 chapters. I looked at their activity, and that's how I selected a winner each week. So I think I gave out 8 prizes total in the 8 weeks that I ran the book launch.
And I know you got a lot more value than the cost of those small gifts.
Yes. I love them. I'm just amazed at the people. Some of them I've never met. I don't even know how they found out, but, you know.
Will you maintain that Facebook group, do you think, as you go forward? Will there be a reason to?
You know, in a way, I felt when I started that it was only going to be for a short period of time, and then I would just dissolve the group. But they begged, no, we want to keep the group. And so I still post on there every day. I post whatever I'm going to post anyway. I just post it there. And I like to stay connected with them. And another thing that I asked of them is that they would do a review for me on Amazon. And they were more than willing to do that. Some of them took pictures with the book and they posted it. They just took off, and I was just sitting back in amazement.
I love those pictures of a buyer with the book in the hand and then the review. It's just a great combo, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is.
You probably know this, but if and when you are ready to, you don't have to close it down. You can archive it. So it can go dormant, and then when your next launch, if you choose to do that, you don't have to. But I don't want you to feel that you have to delete the group. You don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
You can you can archive it, and then when you're ready for your next launch, you can unarchive it, and connect with the same people. But it's much more valuable if you've got the time and the inclination to maintain that connection with them. It sounds like it runs very deep, and they're exactly who you want going to tell about the next book.
Absolutely. And some of them ordered as many as 5 books, and they're ordering more books for friends. And it just blows my mind, because all I did was set it up and I said, well, Lord, okay, I'll set it up. And he just took it and made it what he wanted it to be. And I'm sitting back shocked as a blessed recipient of his goodness and his grace. And even some of the local people here in my town came out to my book launch and my first book signing at a local coffee house, and they came in and just wonderful.
I've seen so many of your pictures, your photos of your book signings in different locations where you're there. And what a great marketing tool. Those opportunities are rare. To not capture them is really missing a marketing opportunity. And then you share them, and you'll always be able to share them until your next book comes out, and you can go back and revisit them if you need to.
That's right. And do you know what, Patricia? I had 2 book signings at the same location, because when I had the first one, I had it on a Thursday night. Many people said, well, I can't come, or it's dark and I don't like to drive at night. So I said, well, I've got to do something. So I went right back to the same wonderful coffee house called Epic Gelato, and I like to go there because I did most of my writing there. And the owner is wonderful. It's family owned. And they said, well, come on back. Come whenever you want. And I went back for a Saturday morning signing. And to my surprise, it was cold. It was rainy. They still came. I was just so blessed. Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, man. You've got some great stories. The Lord has given you favor.
He has.
You've waited a long time. This isn't the first foray at all. You've been successful as a speaker. This is your 3rd book. You have more on the way. But it's sweet.
It is. He's so asking me, what do you have to be thankful for? I was on a prayer call. I said, all I can tell you is that the faithfulness of God is what keeps coming up in my heart. God is faithful. He's just so faithful. And even if we're faithful, we can never outdo him in faithfulness. Yes. He just blows our minds with his goodness and his faithfulness.
Yes, he does. We thank you for that, Father. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kathy Green. Thanks for joining us again.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much. And I love talking to you. You're just great at what you do. And thank you so much, because this platform called Marketers on a Mission is wonderful. And I just feel like authors need to connect with you and come on your program, because what you're doing, it's free. And it's so beneficial to all of us. What a wonderful ministry.
Thank you so much for those words. And
when we partner together, it's wonderful.
Yes. I have a girlfriend who says God is the great multiplier. You just plant one seed, and the next thing you know, the whole field is covered. It's just a beautiful, beautiful relationship. And as you say, everybody benefits. Kathy, let me see if we have anybody else. Mm-hmm. Kathy says, thanks for another good interview. Love this info. And Kathy, what a precious lady you are. So glad I dropped by. Yes.
Thank you.
Any chance you get to talk to Kathy, any chance you get to look at her Facebook page and her profile and follow her process, you will fall in love with her if you haven't already. So please, please. I'm a cheerleader for Kathy R. Green. Thank you, viewers, for being here and engaging with us and learning about, one more time, Meet Me in the Valley by Kathy R. Green. She's going to come back. I just believe it. Can I just hope that you'll come back sometime?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Tomorrow, or let me say, this is Marketers on a Mission, episode number 194. The 4 parts of a successful book launch on Facebook with author Kathy R. Green. Tomorrow, author and relationship coach Renee Roars, author of Come Sit With Me, will tell us how she's sharing captivating stories on short Facebook Lives. That's helping her connect with her audience and sell her book. She has a gentle heart. Her book is very fascinating. You're going to really enjoy my conversation with Renee. We're here every weekday, 12 Pacific through Eastern. This program is designed to help you learn the craft of professional writing and speaking from those who are already doing it, because our mission field is online. There are hungry people out there waiting to hear what you have to say, what God has entrusted you to say, gifted you to deliver. We have to market. We have to get out the word so that they can find us and we can find them. They need to know what we're about, need to hear our message, so their lives can be changed, so their eternity can be changed. It's a big responsibility, and he helps us fulfill it, doesn't he, Kathy?
Yes, he does, and that's so beautifully said.
Janet's popping in. She says, thanks very much, Kathy.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll see everybody tomorrow. Appreciate you being here. Have a good evening.